Hello, I'm here today with Stan McCarthy. What a wonderful guy. Stan is the Senior Vice President of the Acme Brick Company, and we're here today at their corporate office in Fort Worth, Texas. It's a beautiful place, and behind Stan you'll see this beautiful brick sculpture that he has behind him. And actually, Britt took us through yesterday. It tells the story of Acme Brick. And when I first looked at it, it looked like a cool brick sculpture, and it had brick stuff in it, but I didn't realize that it actually told the story of Acme Brick. So it was fun that Britt took us through that. So we're gonna spend some time with him. We're gonna ask him some questions, ask the experts. He's been in sales for a lot of years, and really his whole life in the brick industry has been in sales. And we're gonna spend a moment of time with Stan, and we really appreciate Stan taking time out of his busy schedule to be with us. Stan, it's just a pleasure. I'm with Stan McCarthy, and Senior Vice President of Acme Brick, and Senior Vice President back in 2006. How long have you been working with Acme?
Since 1985.
1985.
Yeah, I left West Texas in the banking business. I'd gone to West Texas State University and finished my master's degree and worked in the banking business for 2.5 years, and knew a professor and worked with a professor out there who knew the then Vice President of Sales, Harold Melton, and interviewed with Harold, and he brought me to Dallas, and that's where I started. I didn't know anything about the brick business, like probably many people who get into the brick business. Unlike you, who knew about the brick business, I didn't know anything about it, but I learned from the ground up in sales back in 1985.
So as far as the sales effort, you've seen it all for all these years. I mean, it's amazing, the ups and downs of the business, everything.
I don't know that I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And particularly growing up in a major market like Dallas-Fort Worth, I think I got to experience a fair amount of diversity in customers and different types of construction. Large builders, small builders, large architectural firms, smaller architectural firms. It's been a very dynamic place to grow up.
And it's a fun, I could tell you, just being part of sales, it's fun calling on the builders and the architects, and you see their perspective, some a little more engineer type, some more of that architect type, that they really get into the design and the color and all the special things they do and all the special things they can do with brick. Right. We make a lot of different colors and sizes, right? But
we do.
Can you imagine all that stuff that they go through and do? So that's really a fun process. We're going to be talking about Dennis Knautz, and he's going to be entered into the Brickman's Hall of Fame for 2019. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you a couple of things about Dennis. So tell me a little bit about what Dennis meant to the Acme Brick Company.
Well, let me go back in time. I think Dennis started back in 1982, which was 3 years before I did. And I really didn't get to know Dennis probably until the late 90s, early 2000s. I was on the sales side of the business over in Dallas, and he was here in Fort Worth as controller. And then he rose up through the ranks of executive vice president and eventually president of the company in 2005. And so my direct interaction with Dennis was in 2005. And it's been that way for 15 years. What has he meant to the company? A great deal. And he's meant even a great deal to the industry as well. Dennis, took over the ranks right when we were on the top of the hill, right before the.
And he was a numbers guy prior to that, though.
Well, yeah, Dennis. Really... Yeah, Dennis is a controller, and he's an accountant, and he had a CPA, and he's even a math major, I think, in college.
Yes,
so
yeah.
he understands numbers, and I will tell you that he'll correct you if you think you know the answer, and Dennis will have it for you. But that's a key attribute. That's a key strength of his. He is able to evaluate things quickly from a financial perspective.
Yeah.
And see what the value of that investment or decision is on the company. And but he led this company in some very difficult times.
Yeah, absolutely.
2007 through 2010, obviously, we had the recession, and we had to make some very hard decisions. And he didn't waver. He knew what we had to do, and he guided us through that. And so he's meant quite a bit there.
Let's go to what he's meant to you personally, or even you professionally, as your relationship built with him from that period.
Yeah, he may not know that I would tell him this, but he's been a great leader and inspiration to me. He's helped me in my career. One of the things about Dennis that I see is unique. He really carries this characteristic, is he has a perspective of things that's broader than most. and you can sit and be in a situation, right? And you're discussing a problem within the company. And after it goes around the table and there's 8 people have talked about it, at the end of it, Dennis will bring up something that inevitably hadn't been discussed or seen. And you'll turn and you'll look, and I didn't think of that. So he has been certainly inspirational for me from keeping, this company guided from a moral, ethical, and doing right principle. And he has preached that, he's lived that, and that's part of what we are as a company. He has helped us with the redefinition or an establishment of many of our cultural beliefs. Back in 2011, and Dennis has been through a lot of acquisitions in this company, by the way.
You're thinking about the Jenkins one.
Well, and I'm thinking about the Jenkins acquisition, which was our largest acquisition. This was a company about the quarter of the size of our company, and very much like us. We were like them, and but when you bring 2 companies together of that size, you really have to think about the effect of the cultures and how they come together.
Absolutely.
And he foresaw that after the acquisition and brought their management team and our management team together to redefine what strategies and cultures and experiences we all had, and formulated plans going forward from there. And
employees to associates?
Yes. Eventually it went down into the organization. That's correct. And all associates are affected by that. And but it was an integral part of what we had to do, and he led that effort.
He says he didn't want to have 2 messages. He didn't want to have 2 messages. And what's really even awesome that you guys honored all those years of service. So they didn't start day one, like, hey, when did you start with the company? I asked you. For them that came on, well, it started in 2011. No, if they'd worked 20 years or whatever years were prior, you guys with their service awards and that, you guys honored that. What a fantastic thing to do for those people.
Dennis didn't create service awards, but he took it to another level. And it's a great time commitment for a CEO to go to every sales office, every administrative place, every production facility over a 2-year period. Even at that, he's traveling probably a quarter of the year. Absolutely. To go out and
14 states, right?
Honor associates for their years of service. And he's made a commitment to that, and it's really good. It's a good commitment. So
when they're 2 years, and then 5 years, and then every 5 years after that, right?
Every 5 years after that, it's an opportunity for our company as leaders, as managers, to recognize that people make our business. Our associates are our greatest asset. They drive the businesses. They are the face of the business in many of the markets that we operate in. Absolutely. And it's not what we do here in Fort Worth. It's what they're doing out there in the market with our customers.
Absolutely. No, that's really good. So think about, I met you at the BIA, BIA meetings. And one of the things that Dennis was a 2-time term chairman of the board, right? He did it twice, right?
Correct.
And so he's brought a lot to the table over the time. So share a little bit about that, because you got to be witness and be a part of that success and all the things of bringing that together, which is some amazing story just in that self, what to do. But share a little bit about the BIA.
Yeah, Dennis was involved with BIA probably back since his term as president, maybe even before, probably back in 2005. But he was the chairman of BIA in 2008 to 2009. And then he was off. And then with the acquisition of Jenkins, Mike Jenkins was the board.
Yes.
Dennis had to pick it up right then and there, and he served 2 terms because of that. But the remarkable thing are the times that he managed the BIA in. And Dennis, with other executives at BIA, really led the efforts for restructuring BIA when they had some financial challenges, and when the recession really hurt us as an industry. He guided BIA through that. He was instrumental in bringing Ray Leonard on, and instrumental through the Dick Jennison transition, and to Greg Borchett. And he really shared a passion for, we have to give back to our industry, especially manufacturers, especially large manufacturers. We can't abandon this industry even in bad times. We need to be there in good and bad, and we need to serve as leaders. And he has stepped up to that commitment in every way.
The Ray Leonard, I picked up on it. I didn't know this, that he played the role it was, but at dinner last night, I said, you were involved in bringing Ray, weren't you? And he goes, yes, I was. And he looked at me and I said, because Ray's a numbers guy like you, because as I researched it, because, we go to the meetings, Ray puts up all these stats. And, for me, not being a numbers guy, I appreciate that to learn more about it and understand the things that they look at all the time. You and I are the hard sell. We see a hole in the ground. It's going to be bricking outside. We want to fill it. So we're more in the reality of it, but they're more in the projecting, looking forward to forecasting and doing all that kind of stuff.
But let me also add that Dennis's commitment to the industry wasn't just at a national level. He served as director of Brick Southwest.
That's true.
Right? And the regional. He was involved in the formulation of Brick Southwest and Texas Masonry Council, becoming Texas Masonry Council, which was big for this state, and going out and helping cities draft ordinances. Even down to something like the North Texas Brick Council. They wrote a check and said, we need to be members of that.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
And that's a commitment from the top all the way down to the bottom in terms of state, national, state, and local. So,
well, through those tough years you talked about, is you're trying to, there's no money to begin with to even help. So the VA wants to bring as much money as they can, but he actually reorganized what you talked about, bringing other groups together where they can survive together. Because as independents, they were all struggling too. It was just the times, right?
That's it. And the commitment really needed to start with manufacturers, even though we need distributors in this organization and have good distributors in the organization. The commitment is from manufacturers, committed to the industry.
So a little bit about Stan. Let's talk a little bit about you. So doing my research and going through, I've asked some people about you, and there is a long list of things I can share. But I grabbed 3 really interesting things I want to do. So here are the few of those. Stan has contagious enthusiasm, a positive can-do attitude, and complete honesty and giving nature, which all that fits great for sales. But what's funny is a positive can-do attitude or complete honest and giving nature, typically you don't hear that when you describe somebody. And those things were described of you, and I thought that was pretty amazing. I wanted to share with you.
I appreciate that. We have a choice in life. You can be happy or you can be sad. Everybody's got problems. Everybody has to manage those problems in life. But I think your attitude, years ago I was told by a coach that your attitude is the difference maker in what you are in life, whether you're an athlete, a businessman, whatever. If you have the right attitude, it'll go a long way with people. And the giving part of it is probably taking after my mom. It's just respecting people, having empathy for people, because and being more interested in what they do than who you are, I think is important. So,
because it's so easy for us to be busy.
No,
it is. We have so much to do.
People tell me, "Oh no, Stan, you're busy. I know you can't do this." And I say, "Please, let's set up some time and let's discuss this. This isn't about me. It's about us. It's about the team." And,
yes, back to your associates' vision. Yeah,
always want to give the credit to the associates. I don't need the credit. I don't want the credit.
That was interesting, because I had asked us about the individual versus, what does it mean to that person? And what he said was, it's not that they're working for somebody, they're working with somebody. And that was just a fantastic thing. Yeah. Let's do Ask the Experts. We're doing a section for that. And so you game?
I'm in.
So let's do the difference between a clay shell brick versus a concrete brick.
Well, the initial rate of absorption in water, whereas brick has a lower rate of absorption, clay brick, concrete absorb water at a higher rate. Brick expand after they've been produced, albeit at a lower coefficient than what concrete do in contracting. But the biggest difference probably when we think of clay versus concrete is color permanence. You have to remember that clay is a natural source. It's of the earth, right? And it's baked at very high degrees to get that incipient fusion, to get that process of it becoming a unit, brick unit. And the color steadfastness is forever. And whereas concrete, and we've sold concrete. We have concrete block plants. You have to add a pigment, which is affected by ultraviolet rays and weathering, and so it will not withstand the color fastness of clay over time. Concrete has a bit of a It's a strong, it's a durable product, but it has a bit of a stigma because it seems to be, I don't want to use the word artificial, but it has to be made and formed and colored added to it, where clay is a natural product.
Yes.
An enduring product. So that's the biggest difference I see in it, other than the absorption, the expansion, the contraction part of it. Clay is a durable, long-lasting product. You don't have to make excuses for a clay paver or a clay brick in a wall. They'll last.
Well, let's go to that. Let's talk about the difference between a clay paver versus a concrete paver. It's similar to what you're talking about, but it's horizontal versus vertical. Let's get into that a little bit.
Sure. And first of all, there are far more concrete pavers sold in the United States and probably the world than there are clay.
Billions of square feet.
But clay is more prevalent in terms of paving in Europe and Australia than it is in the United States.
Especially for streets.
Especially for streets and driveways. And concrete, the other advantage of concrete is they can make it in multiple sizes.
The shapes, the sizes.
And they can do multiple colors because you're adding a pigment to the concrete mix. But again, it gets back to how long does that color last over time. I mean, if you go outside and you look at a clay paver next to a concrete paver over a 10, 15, 20, 25-year period, you'll see fading in the concrete. And that's probably been the hardest thing for the concrete industry to deal with versus clay. But clay manufacturers are becoming more creative. Clay paver manufacturers are becoming extremely more creative with sizes and elongated sizes that you and I didn't grow up selling or looking at.
Right.
No longer is it just a 4x8 or 8x8. We're getting into Norman.
Whitaker Greer would be a good example.
Whitaker Greer is a great example of a company that not only makes different sizes, but makes a lot of different colors.
They do.
And the solar reflective index is becoming more important. That's the heat and the amount of heat that's captured by that product. So darker units capture more heat and give it a higher SRI, and lighter units don't. So companies like Whitaker Greer and others are actually going out and making lighter color to compete with concrete.
Yes, they are. Yeah, to get into the light grays and everything.
Yeah.
So think about this. We have kind of the myth buster that we've been trying to do is, and concrete has done a great job doing it, saying because it's concrete, it's stronger. But apps is not even close to what a clay paver is. No. It's not stronger.
No, I don't think they share the same compressive strengths. And again, I go back to durability. We're chamfering clay now that, and so are concrete, but it doesn't even compare in terms of durability. And no.
My son Logan plays the joke is whenever you hear a lawyer say, I think we have a concrete case, he wants to change it to, no, we have a clay case because it's stronger than concrete. Okay. So one of those things that they have. So, how about, we're talking about the concrete brick. They run into a lot more problems with efflorescence than we do. Talk about efflorescence. What is efflorescence and, how to manage it or the different things that we have.
Efflorescence is a water soluble salt that may or may not be in the unit, whether it's concrete or clay. It might even be in the mortar that separates these units. And when that water soluble salt, that's the key, water soluble, comes in contact with water, that salt manifests its way to the surface of the unit, right, in colder weather and creates efflorescence. And some people refer to it as new building bloom. Sometimes efflorescence doesn't manifest for years, and then it does, but it eventually goes away. But the source has always been the puzzle for many people. Yes, I've seen concrete units effloresce more than clay, but we've had our fair share of efflorescence in the clay industry as well. What I try to tell customers is not to worry because it is a temporary phenomenon. It's something that's going to go away and eventually does go away. It's just, do they have the patience to see that or deal with it in the meantime? And one of the things we have to be careful with efflorescence is it only manifests itself if there's a source of water getting through the wall, generally speaking, and the colder weather tends to bring it out. So
So as the water comes to the surface, it brings the salt, it dries.
It brings the salt, it
leaves the
dries
salt.
in a sunny day, and it powders in the form of efflorescence. I remember in the days when I was selling, the difference between looking at a wall and trying to figure out if it was acid burn or scum.
Yes.
You'd basically lick your finger, pull back, and you could taste the salt versus a acidic taste with scum.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that is, if they can find a way to stop the moisture, if it's a continued process, that would eliminate everything that's going on. So
right. And also preconditioning the bricklayers, the masons, that there are ways to I don't want to say totally get rid of it, but mitigate it by keeping your products, up off the ground where they can't seem to get moisture all the time before they're laid, and cleaning the wall with the right cleaning solution too.
absolutely 100%. A lot of people don't realize, Stan, that brick are tested for efflorescence because it can be controlled. Normally it's vitrified at 1800 plus degrees, whatever, as far as what type of brick it's made. But concrete or mortar do get tested. Not that they can't, there's no sense, because they have natural salts already in it, the product
Correct.
itself.
Yeah. So there's been no testing in that regard from their industry.
Or it'll just show up, yes, it's got efflorescence.
Yep.
So I met you at some of the BIA meetings,
Right.
and one of the times that I sat next to you,
Yeah.
You were really passionate about something, you shared about something, and I want to really tap into that today. I've been trying to learn more since I met you, but you were so passionate, thinking, this is an area I really didn't think about or know about, but you drew my attention to, and I wanted you to bring that to others. And basically, it's about legislation, if I say it right, zoning, masonry ordinances. Let's talk about some of that. Share some of that with us.
Yeah. So in the state of Texas, they just recently passed House Bill 2439, which was done at the state level, which was both the Senate and the House of Representatives passed this bill, which essentially took the power and the authority of cities to have the capability to set ordinances, whether they were masonry or not, to set ordinances. Design ordinances is what they called them. Well, within those design ordinances, cities were able to say, we want to preserve the way our towns look. We're growing at a pretty fast rate. I don't want some large home building company to come in and build something that in 10, 15 years, I don't want that to be part of the city.
Because they come and go, right?
They come and go. And here's the thing. Yeah, the builder buys the lot and they own it for 9 months. Let's say it takes them 9 months to build. They build it, they sell it to you or I. We might own that home for 3 or 4 or 5 years. The city owns it for the life. And it's a taxable entity to that county, to that city. And so cities should have the authority to determine what they want their communities to look like. Not the state, not the national government. To me, the best form of government here is the lowest form of government, which are cities. And the state of Texas took that away. And it was unfortunate because this market, Dallas-Fort Worth, at the time that bill was passed, had over 230 ordinances in North Texas. It was very strong. And now that authority rests in the developer. It's the developer who will sell the lots to the builders and dictate what is to be used, not the cities. So, yes, it's a self-serving thing for somebody in the brick industry to say that I believe in ordinances, but take all that away and you've really stripped the authority of the consumer who lives in that market, that town, and the town councilmen that they look up to and they elect to make these decisions. They no longer have those decisions.
So what would your suggestion be to someone that's watching to say, how could you get more involved or to make a difference in your communities?
We actually, through the Texas Masonry Council, which I'm president of this year, we were reinforcing planners to go out and discuss these very issues with towns. Weren't forcing them to do things, just providing them information on what they can do to draft ordinances. And simultaneously, what's going on in this country are our customers who are home builders, national home builders who are part of the Home Builders Association, are a very powerful lobby, very powerful organization. They don't like the controlling aspect of what cities are doing. they're saying that it's raising the cost of housing affordability.
Hmm.
So what can somebody do? First of all, understand where your politician stands or your candidate stands on issues, not only at a state level, but certainly at a local level, and how it affects your life. I think that this legislative session in 2 years will look back on that decision and regret it. I really do. And I think cities regret that it happened and they didn't stand up and get it defeated. But it's just, to me, it's a principal right, I believe, for a city to have that authority and that ability to make those decisions.
No, that makes sense. It really does. Let me shift you to some fun stuff. Long road trips with Dennis.
Long road trips.
How do you break up a monotony? What do you guys do?
Sometimes I choose to make those, and sometimes he volunteers. But I know that sometimes those trips are long, and whether I'm driving or he's driving, we can get some things done. But it sure offers a lot of opportunity to discuss and get to know your boss and talk about issues within the company. And one of the funny things you mentioned that not many people know this, but Dennis and I probably. So we'll be at a service awards, and we're driving back, let's say, from Central Texas back here to Fort Worth, and we'll see a state trooper, and we'll see another one, and this is about a 3-hour drive, maybe a 3.5-hour drive, and then I'll make a bet. We'll see one more. You take it under or over. For whatever I do, I seem to lose every one of those bets, every one of them. And he just laughs. The minute I make the bet, 5 minutes later, I lose it.
It's amazing. It's an amazing story. It really is just fun. So I shared that with him at dinner last night, and he started chuckling all the time. And I didn't say about who won or lost. And he comes to me and says, he sure loses a lot on those bets. He set him up and all that. So it was kind of fun to be with him.
Don't tell him I make him look good.
That's a good thing that you do that. We'll have to edit that part out, right? We'll have to do that.
Yeah.
The other one was, I said I had some advice for him. Mm-hmm. And Dennis kind of looked at me for a second. I held that thought. And I said, now, in all honesty, I'm not the guy to give you advice for anything. I'm the student, you're the teacher. But this is advice that Stan gave me for you. And that I said, when you do these awards, when you guys do these service awards, that Stan had suggested it'd probably be smarter if you would go first ahead of him, right? Why don't you share why that is? And he knew right away. He
laughed. He knew right away. So at service awards, Dennis attends every one, and he usually speaks at the end of the service award. Now, Ed Watson, who you'll be talking to here in a little bit, goes when there's a production facility, and he'll speak about safety, he'll speak about service, and then he'll turn it over to Dennis. But if we go where we're both together, Ed, myself, and Dennis, Ed will go first, I'll go second, and I'll get up. And I love talking. Believe me, I love sharing things with associates. I'll get into things, and I'll keep talking, and probably get into some things that Dennis wants to talk about. And so each and every time he follows me, he says, boy, it's nice to follow Stan. He just picks up on all my material. So it's sort of a joke between us.
It is, and what's neat though, he took it to the next level with us last night. He had said that, some of the stuff that you guys talk about, the meetings, what's coming up, and you guys start thinking about stuff. Right. He said it really shows that you guys are paying attention because it becomes you're part of your language. Right. And in all the research and study I've done with you guys, it is amazing the team you guys put together, even out of that who's left of the 206 group that you guys put together, right. Senior vice presidents. Right. He kind of organized that when he first come on board. He started thinking about that. Yeah. And he really created you guys created a powerhouse of all the way through, and you stayed together. Mm-hmm. And you guys have the years and knowledge. And for me now, being involved with other companies, I really see with the majesty and all that. I really notice it because even with Glengarry, and we're really spread out, we never got to that point. I mean, there's some great people at Glengarry, but I think if they would have had that core team right. together like that, right. they could have been even more amazing, through the years than what they end up being. So that's just fantastic. Any young man or young woman that's going to come into sales in the brick industry, they're before you today, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, from our perspective, we're in the brick industry, but we're really in the building materials industry. And there's a great deal of opportunity in the building materials industry, not only in the manufacturing side, but in the distribution side, which is what we've been focusing on more and more as a company. But I would offer all positive advice for anybody who wants to get into sales. You know, some 35 years ago when I left banking to get into sales, I was pretty nervous about what it was. I probably had the same feelings or myths towards what I've been told, and it was just totally the opposite. It's a people, it's a communication, it's a relationship game. It's about trust. Who can develop confidence and trust? Confidence in the products you sell and trust from the customers. Takes time, but it is such a rewarding business to be in because it, absent of the money you can make, the financial part of it, it's the people you get to meet.
Yes.
The friendships, the relationships. And I think you, on the sales side, tend to have more of that opportunity than you would otherwise have.
Very true.
In an IT position or an accounting position, you know, things like that. So my advice is if you've got the right attitude towards it and you like dealing with people and communicating and learning every day, I would advise them to go into sales.
Yeah, and you've done that amazing, but you have to spend your life, right? Sales has been absolutely your life the whole way through, at the beginning to the end.
Life.
So
yeah, I mean, I go home and sell at night to my wife, my
true.
children. I mean, we all sell.
Well, and when you and I started the industry, it was mostly brick, but you're right. It's opened up and diversified in so many products. I mean, I was at a dealer just on my travel down here. I'd stop in different cities.
Right.
They were selling furniture. And I never thought as a brick salesman, would I be selling a couch or
outdoor products are big because it's what consumers are spending money on today. You know, we used to spend it in the house. Now we want it outside, and especially in the Southwest where you can use that outdoor stuff 9-10 months a year. So it's a big deal.
You know, it's funny when I was calling on the architects, and sometimes you could tell the architects like, I'm really busy, but I'll give you some time or whatever. And then you got to the point where the internet and email and all that stuff took off where you could communicate in a different way or drop samples off and do the stuff. Right. And then I found over time, some of the engineers would say, or architects would say, you don't stop by enough. You know, we used to complain when I stopped by too much, you know, but it is that relationship side of it. And the new generation, they're on the phones all the time. They're not talking. They'll even be at the table texting each other. And I'm like, really, are my kids are, you know, texting each other? Really, we're doing that?
There's no question that the digital world is changed the way we interact. But there'll always be, in my mind, a need for the touch, the human touch.
No, I believe you're right.
In that contact. It may become less of a benefit or a feature of a rep, but it will never go away in the end, never go away.
So last two questions. Here's a perfect plug for you. Do a plug for Acme Brick.
Acme Brick is a dynamic company in that it's evolving into more than just a brick company, as I said earlier. We're really a distribution company. We have a strong brand, very strong brand, a lot of identity with the brand. We have a very solid owner financially, Berkshire Hathaway, and we will continue to move this company in a positive direction and do things that will not only safeguard the industry and protect the industry, but, you know, protect our associates and reward our associates. And I think it's a wonderful company to work for. It's very much a small company in many ways. I mean, there's a lot of visibility in communication, whether it be from a rep to Dennis or, you know, somebody in the sales side to Ed Watson. We all know one another. It's not a big company. It sounds like it is. It has a big company name, but it's not. And if you want to become part of something special, become part of Acme Brick. I
was surprised, being one of the largest U.S.-owned brick manufacturers in the United States, I was really surprised that you guys were so regional. Dennis kept talking about how regional you guys are, because I'm thinking you've got it all over the country, you know, as it goes. So I was really surprised to find that, because even when he does the housing starts and when he looks at things, it's different when we look at the housing starts up north where we're not using that much brick versus it's beautiful brick market down here. I took Logan through the subdivisions of Fort Worth, and you say, I want to live in there. That's where I want to live. I think that's how we have to deal with the millennials. That's the choice. That's where you want to be, not
Yeah.
But you have that here. We don't have that all around the country.
You know, you're absolutely right. First of all, it's a benefit to be in the South and Southwest because of the climate. We can build year round, right? And now we have some cold days, we have some icy days, but you're also in a very brick-centric, masonry-centric part of the country. Texas is a big masonry state, whether it's stone, whether it's brick, whether it's block.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of belief that this state is built on masonry, and it is. If you get out of the state capitol, and you can see the limestone they used in the walls. So we're in a we are a regional company. I'd call a large regional company.
Absolutely.
We have a footprint outside of our direct market area. We sell through distributor sales,
Yes.
but we're becoming more attuned to national sales with distribution, right? And the products we can source and resell through that effort.
Absolutely. And so your main focus of the region would probably be around 13 states.
13
Fair.
states. Yeah.
So that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And then two, you guys have controlled part of your job. You've kind of controlled the market with the outside manufacturers because you guys started selling more and more of their product versus they saying, I have to have a sales force or do that.
Right.
You capitalized on that.
Yeah,
which
no
was
question.
amazing.
30 years ago, and Harold Melton was probably the gentleman who really drove this effort.
He was the president before Dennis?
He was the vice president of sales. Then
he
he
was
became
vice
president for a short
Okay.
period of time before Dennis. That's correct. Really took what was a commodity and put brand equity into it. And this was done through a lot of smart promotion and advertising over the years. And those efforts paid off, and they're still paying off. I don't think we'll ever lose the brand position that we have within our market area. That's strong when you're in sales. I mean, when somebody goes out and can ask you what Troy Aikman's doing because Troy was our spokesman.
Absolutely.
Or no, I know about Acme Brick. You know, I've got Acme Brick on their home. They may not have Acme Brick on their home, but they think they do. And that's a testament to the brand.
Not everybody does that.
No.
Not everybody thinks that way.
And let me also couple that with, Harold's thought process and the leader's thought process years ago was that we had to have representation in our communities, and that these sales locations with their reps and their managers would become ambassadors in their communities and get to know people in their communities. And therefore, if you get to know, builders, architects, council members, centers of influence, right? And you develop those relationships over time, people trust you. And that trust will result in higher sales. No,
that is so true.
Yeah.
So last question. Tell me about what Acme Brick meant and means to you.
Well, it's my life. I've only had 2 jobs. I was in the banking business for 2.5 years, and then there's Acme Brick. And I wake up today just excited about what needs to be done, what can be done, and what has been done. And it's my life, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it at all. It's inspiration for me, really, in a lot of ways. And it's the people that you work with. It's the people you get to deal with and work with that make it exciting.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to get to know you
Thank
more
you,
all the time. And
Absolutely.
I can tell you are that inspiration. I can see that everywhere in the travels
Thank
where
you.
I go. So
Thank you.
keep it up, man.
Okay.
Just keep going.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.